John Adams was the second president under the United States Constitution from 1797 to 1801. During his one term in office, President Adams had two important issues that he had to deal with. One was the XYZ affair, and the other was a series of laws collectively known as the Alien and Sedition Acts of 1798. The major diplomatic concern during Adams' presidency was the fact that Great Britain and France were desiring to control the Atlantic sea lanes, and as a result, were impacting American commerce and shipping. Both the British and the French were overtaking American shipping and also following the practice known as impressment, of taking American sailors and forcing them into service in either the British or the French Navy against their will. The United States was brand new and very small and weak, and so these actions by the British and the French were very troublesome and dangerous. President Adams wanted to deal with these important issues, and it ultimately led to the XYZ affair and the Alien and Sedition Acts. The XYZ affair was a diplomatic incident that, when made public in 1798, nearly involved the United States and France in war. President John Adams dispatched 3 ministers to France in 1797 to negotiate a commercial agreement to protect United States shipping. In Paris, the American ministers were approached by 3 French agents who suggested a bribe of $250,000 to the French Foreign Minister Talleyrand, and a loan of $10 million to France as a prelude to negotiations. In April 1798, the actions of the 3 French agents, who were identified as X, Y, and Z in the diplomatic correspondence, were made public in the United States. There was a great outcry over the bribe solicitation, and followed by preparations for war between the United States and France. Although a period of undeclared naval warfare called a quasi-war ensued between France and the United States, formal war was avoided, and the incident was settled by a treaty called the Convention of 1800. But coming out of the XYZ affair was the passage in 1798 of a series of laws known as the Alien and Sedition Act. There were 4 of them. There was the Naturalization Act, the Alien Act, the Alien Enemies Act, and the Sedition Act. All of them had important details. The Naturalization Act, passed in 1798, was ultimately repealed in 1802. The important elements of the Naturalization Act were, first, it raised the residency requirements to become a United States citizen. Previously, after 5 years you could apply for citizenship, but under the Naturalization Act, the time period was extended to 14 years. Additionally, anyone who wanted to declare their intent to become a United States citizen had to do it 5 years in advance. So aliens had to declare intent to acquire citizenship 5 years before it could be granted. And finally, any individual identified as an enemy alien was ineligible for citizenship. The Alien Act was also passed in 1798. It was never enforced, and it expired in 1801. The Alien Act said that the United States government could deport any dangerous alien from what were called friendly nations. The Alien Enemies Act is the only one of the Alien and Sedition Acts of 1798 that was never repealed, but it has been amended through the years. The President can jail or expel anyone identified as an enemy alien during wartime. This act established a precedent for future events such as the internment during World War II of Japanese Americans. The Sedition Act was also passed in 1798, and it expired in 1801. Sedition is defined as advocating the overthrow of the American government. The Sedition Act provided for severe fines and jail penalties for speaking, writing, or publishing any items critical of the government or its representatives. After the Sedition Act was passed, there were only 2 major prosecutions that occurred under its provisions. Newspaper publisher Thomas Cooper and a Republican congressman by the name of Matthew Lyon were both prosecuted for violating the Sedition Act. The Alien and Sedition Acts were very popular when passed, but they quickly became controversial. Thomas Jefferson and James Madison were especially critical of the Alien and Sedition Acts. Promoted by Jefferson and Madison and supported by an increasing number of United States citizens, the states of Virginia and Kentucky adopted resolutions critical of the Alien and Sedition Acts. Most importantly, the resolutions supported the idea known as nullification, the idea that an individual state could declare a federal law to be null and void within its state. And so, if the Congress passed and the President signed a piece of legislation, a state government, such as Virginia or Kentucky, could declare it to be not valid within their state. This concept of nullification became a very important issue on the road toward the American Civil War in the 1860s.